Well, this has been a challenging couple of years for Manitoba theatre companies, not just having to change plans due to COVID, but also dealing with worldwide reckonings about race, injustice, and brutality. For the past few months, local theatre professionals in Saskatchewan, Alberta, and Manitoba have joined forces in a series of workshops to determine what they want the future of theatre on the prairies to look like. Taiwo Afolabi is the Canadian Research Chair in Socially Engaged Theatre, and he leads those sessions. He joins us to talk more about it. Taiwo, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you so much, Holly.
So let's talk about the difference it can bring to the world and to the people here at home if local theatre is socially engaged or not.
Absolutely. I believe that the kind of theatre that we're doing, that we want to do, especially in this time where we find ourselves, is the kind of theatre that is socially relevant. And so whether home or abroad, and of course in the context of where we are on the prairies, it's very important for us to think about our roots here and how the theatre, that whether it's site-specific or in our, in our different theatre companies, the kind of theatre they bring on stage is something that is very important and critical and relevant to their audience. And that means speaking about ideas and issues that are of essence to them.
Now, speaking those issues and ideas is not something that you're doing alone. What sorts of things are you discussing in your sessions with others?
Absolutely. So the Future Prairie Theatre, it's really a community-led research and innovation project about the prairie theatre sector. And a lot of the things that we're talking about are issues that are of importance to us, issues around board governance, issues around community retention of work here on the prairies. We're really very particular about ways to engage the community in those issues that are critical to us, especially now that we're talking about, COVID, post-COVID, with all of the issues that are happening with race and identity and representation. Those are really critical ideas that we're talking about. And of course, we're also we're talking in terms of the audience that come into the space to see the performances and the socially relevant theatre that we're talking about.
Mm-hmm. Now, how should theatre in the prairies feel different than theatre elsewhere?
Well, that's an interesting question, Holly. I mean, maybe I won't say it should feel different. I would say that, first of all, here on the prairies, it's a different, from a geographical standpoint. We have what makes us tick, compared to places like Vancouver or Toronto. That's number one. Number two is that based on the fact that we're in the, we're where we are, some would say we're like in the middle of nowhere in the country. But I think beyond that is that we're constantly thinking and finding ways to bring ourselves to that idea that our theater should speak to our people, should speak to us, so that we know that we're enough, rather than having to go to Vancouver or go to Toronto. And I'm not saying those places are not great, they are, but then knowing that for us here on the prairies, our theater should speak about us, about our identity. It should speak about our own challenges and peculiarity, and also uphold us, in meaningful ways as artists and different stakeholders within the landscape.
For sure. Now, of course, the pandemic has certainly slowed down the theatre world. Now, does that help or hinder your efforts to create more social engagement within theatre productions while they're largely on pause for the now?
Well, I think it's a two-sided thing, right? Yes, it does. It does impair that process of meeting people one-on-one, but then the virtual space has been very helpful. So the Future Prairie project that we're working on right now, it's really we're working with over 35 each meeting. We've done 5 now, and each of those meetings we have on the average 35 participants from the 3 provinces, right? So that's the beauty of the virtual space. We find ourselves where we're really having those conversations and engaging with one another. But of course, we can still, that's the in compared to really being in the same space and things like that. So I think we're finding ways to navigate that. And this is not just the Future Prairie Theatre project alone. It's the same thing with all of the theatre, in the country, in the region, and of course all over the world. We're trying to find a way to blend things and make it work, despite what it is that we're passing through right now as a community and as a people.
Wow, it sounds all great. Thank you so much for sharing your insights today with us, Taiwo.
Thank you so much, Holly.